Breakups are often the symptom of problems in a relationship. My workbook series, The Knowledge, is focused on helping you change your life in 4 key areas: retaining the information that I teach, personal growth, improving your relationships, and of course, re-attracting your ex. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And today we're going to be talking about the strength of sense of self. It's a bit of a tongue twister there.
It's hard to say that.
It is.
The strength of sense of self.
But it's really important to understand this because knowing who you are and what you want is absolutely critical to being an independent adult and having a partner be attracted to you.
Yes.
Whether you're trying to re-attract an ex or going to date other people, if you don't have a strong sense of who you are,
right,
what you want, and what you're about, you're going to allow other people to control you.
That's right,
and run your life. We're going to talk about that today.
And the stronger your sense of self is, the healthier you're going to be. Now, we've kind of touched on this before. I don't know if you remember my discussion of noodle school, where this woman is told by her family that her family has been in the noodle business for 4 generations, and she's going to have to go to noodle school. And she says, but what if I'm not good at noodles? What if I don't want to go to noodle school? What if I want to study butterflies on the island of Madagascar? But nobody's interested in what her decision is for her future. So I'm again back to one of my favorite topics, and I promise not to talk about autonomy anymore for a while, but I won't last that long, okay?
But it's an important topic,
It's a hugely important topic.
And it's rarely talked about.
It's rarely talked about, and I think it is one of the biggest issues. When I think about being a therapist for 30-odd years, very rarely did anyone walk into my office who had completed this task. Okay? So it affects your entire life.
And not only is it going to affect you, but it's going to be a part of every single person that you date.
Right.
And if they aren't autonomous to
Right.
the point where they can make their own choices and decisions, guess who's going to run the show?
And that's one of the first assessments you want to do when you start to get with somebody. But in the interest of people saying, well, how can I work on this? How can I work on this? I wanted to give you some examples of things you can think about and work on. And you can look at your family of origin. Here's the trick. You can look at your family of origin and you can say, I choose to believe and imitate the customs of everything in my family of origin. Now, if you have truly thought about that and made a decision, that's great. That's fine, and it's your decision. But if you've just kind of adopted it all because it keeps your family happy and it keeps your parents off your back and you don't have to argue with them, that's not okay, because your soul is really not quite your own. Okay? So it's extremely important. And it has always been considered a task of adolescence. I think that's crazy. I'm still doing it, and I'm not an adolescent, honest to God. It's a lifelong issue because we tend to be influenced by what we grew up with all of our lives. The 2 biggest areas are, well, noodle school and what we're going to do with our lives. I mean, we have to know what we want and be ready to go get it, or know what we don't want and have a plan to think about it. I've certainly been there. And your thoughts have to be your own. The biggest 2, you can guess very quickly, are religion and politics.
That's right.
Okay? Now, whatever you grew up in terms of religion, you may choose to stay with that. You may not choose to stay with that. But you need to make your own decision. You can't just accept it. Okay?
You have to do what's right for you.
You have to do what's right for you, what makes sense for you. Do your research, evaluate your impressions, and decide what you want to do. Politics is the same way. I grew up in a family that was very clear about religion and politics, and I can tell you I certainly had my own struggles straightening out my own thinking. And some pieces of what my family believed I kept, and many pieces I did not. Okay? But you have to...
Dinosaurs had politics?
Yes, yes, and there were some of them who carried big clubs and tried to beat the opponents into submission. I never voted for them, okay? I like the more reasonable frogs. Okay.
Frogs?
Frogs. And it's a very, very important job. And I can talk to somebody for approximately 2 seconds and tell you whether they've done this process or not. Some people have, many people have done part of it. And will tell you things like, but if I ever told my mother or my father what I think about this, they'd have a fit. Well, then they'll just have to have a fit because you have a right to your own opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sexual identity would be a big one too.
Oh, sexual identity is huge. I'll be disowned if I tell my family who I am. Okay?
That's sad.
It really is sad.
It really is sad. How could
really
you not
is.
love
Yeah.
somebody because of their
Right.
sexual identity?
But it happens all the time. My family has disowned me or will disown me. And I just heard yesterday, I believe it was, no, earlier today, if I don't let my parents come for a visit, somebody will disown me. And you want them at your house, why? Help me understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard that one several times. I don't want anyone thinking I'm singling them out. Very commonly do I hear that one. So it's extremely important that you do that. And the ultimate decision that you're going to make in your life is who to marry. And if they're the wrong religion, the wrong politics, the wrong cultural group, and I'm hearing all of it, and people can come from cultures that are very determined and convinced that families of origin should be involved in decisions to marry and so forth and so on.
Sure.
It's very, very difficult to say no to a parent. It's always anxiety-provoking and makes you feel guilty, but you really have to do it if you're going to be your own person. And all of us have a right to be our own person.
That's right.
So if you want to work on this for yourself, you can start with religion and politics. How you treat other people. You know, how you feel about minorities. I mean, there are people who have all kinds of strong opinions about all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
you
have
need to
decide,
determine for yourself what it is that works for you, not what your parents want for you or your friends or your family. If it doesn't feel right for you, then you need to think about that. And if you really want to incorporate in who you are, and you need to look at your partner and their ability to make their own decisions. And do they accept you for who you are and what your beliefs are?
Right.
Because if they don't, they're going to impose their own wills onto you.
And be sure you check with your partner, particularly if you're thinking of marrying someone. You have to know where their family stands on all that. Are they going to be telling you when your kids go to school what they should take, what school to go to, what Sunday school you should send them to? All of those things you have to take into consideration. And you and your partner need to have made decisions before families of origin try to, often think it is their decision.
Absolutely.
So you have to have a boundary around yourself. Now, I made up the noodle school, but our friend Susan Johnson had another one. She often talks in her book about her grandma. Now, she must have liked her grandma a lot. But she said that when she was a kid, her grandmother told her that when she grew up, she would get married. And the first thing she needed to learn to do was to tell men how clever they are. Okay? That would be a handy skill to have in the world her grandma was talking about. And that she would have to learn to make beef and kidney pie. Now, dreadful though that may seem, I think it's a staple in Britain. And Susan lived in Britain and in Canada where it was British culture. And she said, but I don't like beef and kidney pie, and I'm sure I don't want to make it. And Grammy said, you're going to have to. That's all there is to it. And you know what Susan said? No. Being a good little rebellious kid. So it's always important. I can't encourage you enough. And we don't talk about it enough. We really don't. The quickest way to assess if somebody is a grown-up is can they make their own adult decisions. The biggest one being who are they going to be with. I wanted to take a job over here in another state, but my mother got really upset, so I didn't go. You can't do that.
And if you don't think about this,
right,
what's going to happen is you might find yourself dating somebody who is allowing their parents to dictate
absolutely
your relationship.
Yes.
And next thing you know, you're no longer a partnership. You're under the parents,
Yeah.
and the parents are running
Yeah.
your life.
And that happens often.
It really does.
And when I've explained that to several people, they've been absolutely shocked because it never occurred to them. And when they hear that that's what's going on, they don't disbelieve me. They say, wow, I never thought of it that way. But you have to. There are some decisions that have to be yours. And being a grown-up has its downfall, but overall, it's better than not being a grown-up, or no one would bother, I decided.
That's right.
Okay?
So you want to think about your sense of self and how strongly developed it is. And you want to look at your partners as well, because if either of you are letting other people run the relationship, it's going to impact it, and either of you are going to be, one of you is going to be unhappy.
Right.
Or both of you.
Another way to look at it, too, is to ask yourself some very simple questions. If somebody asked me, who are you today, what would I say? You know, what would anybody say? What would you say about yourself? Is it who you want to be? Do you like who you've turned out to be? Or would you like to make some changes? Because you always can.
That's right.
All right? So it's in your control totally. No one else's. The scary part of truly being an adult is that you take responsibility for your own decisions. And if you're wrong, you own it, and you say that. You know, you're right and I'm wrong. And it may sound very difficult to do, but it's a lot easier than the alternative. And I'm thinking some of the worst boundary violations I have ever seen are between, you know, married parents and children, and grandparents on either side who are determined. They're going to decide how the children are raised, how the children are handled, and you say, you know, you have to put a boundary around your family. You can't let your mother make those decisions. Well, I can't upset my mother. You're going to have to if it's going to be your child and your child rearing practices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all those things.
All of those things you have to think about.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming at times. But you really do want to think about this kind of stuff before you make a decision on who you want to spend your life with.
And I promise not to talk about autonomy for a little while.
I banned her. I said, this is it, Margaret. You get nothing until 2019.
So, but I told him I'm making my own decisions, so there.
So it's still debatable.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, put a like on there. And Margaret did a lot of research on this one, so make sure you put a like on it just for that. Of course, when you want to get our help personally, go to my website, askcraig.net. Sign up for the coaching option that works best for you. I do email coaching, and I do Skype. Margaret is available for Skype coaching.
Yes, feel free to sign up with me.
Just click on Margaret on the top of the website to do that. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And we will talk with you soon. I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different, and every breakup is different. Work with me, and you'll get professional help on your situation. Just click on the link in the description below, or go to my website, askcraig.net.